The Marvel Cinematic Universe has had its share of bold creative decisions over the years, but few have been as controversial or as ultimately transformative as the casting of Tilda Swinton as the Ancient One in Doctor Strange. While the decision sparked heated debates upon announcement, it's now clear that Marvel's move wasn't just a workaround. It was a calculated risk that helped redeem one of Marvel Comics' most outdated characters for modern audiences. The Ancient One, a legacy rooted in stereotype. In the original Doctor Strange comics by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, the Ancient One was portrayed as a wise, elderly Asian man who served as the mystical mentor to Stephen Strange. While meant to be a figure of reverence and respect, the character's depiction, complete with a shaved head, flowing robes, and Fu Manchu-like mustache, was steeped in tropes that veered dangerously close to Orientalist caricature. Over time, as cultural awareness grew, this portrayal came to be seen as emblematic of the mystical Asian sage stereotype. Despite the good intentions of the original creators, many of whom were progressive for their time, the Ancient One remained a relic of an era when Asian characters were rarely afforded depth beyond exotic mysticism or martial arts mastery. The need for reinvention was obvious, especially for a character so critical to Doctor Strange's origin story and the broader mystical mythos of the MCU. The cultural dilemma of recasting the Ancient One. As Marvel prepared Doctor Strange for the big screen, the creative team, led by director Scott Derrickson and co-writer C. Robert Cargill, faced a no-win situation. Keeping the Ancient One's Tibetan origins intact could have risked alienating Chinese censors, effectively cutting off the world's largest movie-going audience. On the other hand, casting an Asian actor in a similarly stereotyped role could have reignited the very criticisms Marvel was hoping to avoid. And completely removing the Ancient One from the story wasn't a viable option due to the character's foundational role in Strange's transformation. In an appearance on the Double-Toasted web show, Cargill summed it up as Marvel's Kobayashi Maru, a reference to a Star Trek scenario with no clear victory path. "Every single thing here is a losing proposition," he said, emphasizing the complex web of political, cultural, and narrative pressures surrounding the character. Tilda Swinton, a controversial, yet strategic choice. The creative solution? Cast someone completely unexpected. Tilda Swinton, a white, female, Oscar-winning actor known for ethereal, otherworldly roles. By doing so, Marvel flipped the script, literally and metaphorically. Swinton's casting drew immediate backlash for what many labeled as whitewashing. Critics argued that removing one of the few Asian mentor roles from the MCU did more harm than good. But over time, some fans and critics began to see the logic behind the decision. Swinton's portrayal avoided the cultural landmines tied to the original character, and by gender-swapping the role and removing overt ethnic identifiers, the MCU created a new, enigmatic version of the Ancient One who is still deeply rooted in the mystical ethos of the franchise. Swinton's Ancient One wasn't a stereotype. She was a paradox. Simultaneously benevolent and morally ambiguous, her version brought nuance and narrative complexity that ultimately deepened the MCU's magical hierarchy. What the casting achieved. Though divisive, the casting choice accomplished several key goals. Defused a cultural stereotype. By reimagining the character, Marvel sidestepped reinforcing decades-old tropes while still honoring the character's legacy. Opened doors for other Asian characters. With the Ancient One reinterpreted, Doctor Strange left room for characters like Wong, portrayed with depth and dignity by Benedict Wong, to thrive. Wong has since become a recurring and increasingly important figure in the MCU. Expanded the creative envelope. Swinton's performance helped show that the MCU wasn't afraid to subvert expectations when necessary, opening the door for future reinterpretations of comic characters, like Jane Foster's Mighty Thor or Sam Wilson's Captain America. A decision still debated, but with long-term impact. Even years after Doctor Strange's release, the debate over the Ancient One continues. Was it the perfect solution?
No.
But it was a solution that acknowledged the weight of the character's history and attempted to steer it in a new direction. In doing so, Marvel took a problematic legacy and made it part of a broader evolution, one that would later allow for more authentic Asian representation in titles like Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings. Tilda Swinton's casting didn't erase the controversy, but it did help push the MCU toward a more inclusive and thoughtful future. And that, perhaps, is the kind of magic the Ancient One was always meant to wield.